All right, we're gonna look at the percent word problems. So percents are something you're gonna use for the rest of your life, okay? It's a very real world thing, okay? So we're gonna practice finding three different types of percent problems. The first one is if you know the percent and where you're starting, what's the new number? The second is gonna be if you know the percent and where you are, where did you start? And then the last one is finding the percent. So your steps to solving the percentage problems, and this is just kind of like a general outline or advice here, is one, you're gonna read the problem, makes sense, right? You might wanna read it 2-3 times to make sure you truly understand it. And there's some parts that we're gonna be looking for. One is that original number. What's the 100%? What are we starting off or what are we comparing to? What is that percent difference? Is it an increase or a decrease? Is it going up or going down? And then what is that new number? And there's lots of different ways we can solve these. We can make tape diagrams. We can do double number lines. We can find the part of the whole and then add it or subtract it. We can write an equation. There's lots of different things to do. So I'm going to show you how to do all of those in hopefully what's not too long of a video. So my first type of problem here is if we're trying to find the new number, I'm calling it. So we have a problem. We have the amount of ducks in a pond increased by 25% since last year. Last year there were 40 ducks in the pond. How many ducks are there this year? So I'm gonna make my pen a little bit smaller. So I got 25%, that's an important number, and so is 40. So I have my percent. I have my original number, because that's what it said last year, there were 40. And it's 25% since last year. So my 25% is being applied to the 40, which is gonna be my original here. So we're trying to figure out what that new number is. That's what my question is asking me. I'm gonna box the word increase because that's telling me which way I'm going. It's going up by 25%. So like I said, there's a couple ways we could do this. And first we could draw a tape diagram, okay, to help us picture what's going on. So let's think about it this way. So we have last year, okay? Last year is our 100%. That's what we are finding a percent of, and that is 100%, and that's my 40 ducks, okay? This year, so that's what I'm trying to figure out, I have a 25% increase. So what that means, I still have my 100% of ducks, which is my 40, but I'm adding 25% onto it. I'm adding 25% more ducks because it says it's an increase. So that's kind of the picture of what's going on. So we can solve it using the tape diagram. We can take it a step further and try to figure out what this piece is. So that's the first thing we're doing. I'm trying to figure out what that 25% is, or that number I'm adding on. So let's say then I would figure out what 25% of my ducks are, okay? So we know that we would write our decimal, or sorry, our percent is a decimal. You can divide that. 25 over 100 is what that means to find my decimal. I could also move my decimal point over too, whichever way works best for me. But I'm gonna write it as a decimal. Of means times, and I'm gonna times it by 40. This gives me 10. So that means that my part that I added on here is 10 ducks. So now if I started with 40 and I add 10 more ducks, so if I started with 40 and I add 10 more ducks, I now have 50 ducks this year. That is my answer. So this would be the finding the percent and then adding it in. So it's 2 steps. So you find the percent, and then you add it to the original. In the same kind of sort of thing, we can use an equation, and I can see that. So as an equation, here I started with 100% and I added 25% on, which means I now have 125% of my original. So I can write this using a decimal. So again, I can divide by 100, or I can move the decimal point over, and I would have 1.25 times my original number. I'm using X right now because it's an equation, would give me my new number. So I would just go back in here and plug it in, 125% of my ducks. So 125% of the ducks, write it as a decimal of means times is going to give me 50. Two different ways to get the same answer. And then the last way I'll show you how you can solve a problem like this, and I'm going to make my lines a little smaller, is by using a double number line. This is another visual way to figure this out. We can compare our ducks to our percents, okay? And 0% is going to be 0 ducks. And we know 100% is 40 ducks. Okay. It's increasing by 25%, so I'm going up 25%. So if I have 100% and I go up 25%, that means I'm at 125%. Okay, so I'm going to try to figure out what number goes up there. At the bottom, I can see I'm jumping up by 25%, so I need to make jumps of 25%. So if I'm going down by 25s, I'd have 75, I'd have 50, I'd have 25, and I get down to 0. And if you remember my double number line, the numbers have to line up at the top. And so I have my 40 divided into, I have to get there in 4 jumps. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm gonna think 40 divided by 4 is going to give me 10. So that means I'm counting by 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I got 50. So to answer the question, how many ducks are there this year? There are 50. And we got this answer 3 different ways. Double number line, finding the percent of the original, and then adding it to the original, and writing an equation. So we're gonna try another one. Oops, wrong way. And fitting that we're talking about snow. So the number of days it snowed in Philadelphia this year was 10% less than last year. Last year it snowed 30 days. How many days did it snow this year? So I'm gonna kind of analyze my problem, and I see some numbers. I have a 10%. I have a 30. Okay, so I'm gonna figure out what that is. And I know that last year, less, I see the word less, that tells me my percent is going down. I wanna know how many days did it snow this year. Okay, so this year, so I'm taking my 10%, I'm doing it to the 30. I'm applying to the 30, so the 30 is gonna be my original, and my new number is what I'm trying to figure out. So I can think about it by I can represent it making my bar diagram, or my tape diagram, whatever we wanna call it. And I'm thinking I have 100% is my days last year, which was 30. This year, I have 10% less. So I'm gonna take 10% off. So I'm subtracting my 10%. So I have 30 and I'm taking away 10%. So I can use this bar diagram to try to solve the problem a couple of different ways. And the first way again would be finding my part of the whole. I want to make this smaller, hang on a second. So I'm going to find my part and then subtract. And I'm subtracting because it says it's less. That word less tells me it's going down. I'm going to subtract. So if I find my part, so I'm going to figure out what 10% of my 30 days is. So I would just put that in my calculator as a decimal. 0.10 times 30 gives me 3. I go back to my original. So this means this part's 3. So I started with 30 and I'm taking away 3. 27. My answer is 27. So part, or the first way we can do this is the part, find the part, should we find the part and then subtract or add. The second way we could do this is we can use the equation. Okay. Looking at my bar, this whole thing is 100. I'm taking away 10. So I have 100% and I'm taking away 10%. What's left over? Well, 100 minus 10 is 90. So that means my new number is 90% of the original. So I can write that as a decimal or as an equation. 90% of X is going to give me my new number Y. Okay, I would just plug it in because I know my new number is. So I'm going to do 0.90 times 30, which is my original number, and that gets me 27. So again, I got it 2 different ways. And then the last way, so your double number line. Okay, so if this was way 1 and this is way 2, the third way you can do this is a double number line. And we're going to want to draw our number lines. And I have zeros. And we'll put the percent at the bottom, and we have D's at the top. Okay, and I know that the whole, or my 100%, is going to be 30. So I'm trying to figure out 10% less. So now I'm going to go down this way, 10. 100 minus 10 is 90. So we're trying to figure out what would go over there. To be able to figure this out, I'm jumping by 10% down here. So I'm going to need to jump by 10% down here. Let me see. 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. It's not perfect. Would get me down my 10% at the bottom. So I'm going to have to line up some lines across the top, of course, to be, probably shouldn't have made them equal, but we'll do. So now I've divided my double number line into, let me figure out what I'm jumping by to get there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm making 10 jumps to get to 30. So what am I jumping by? I'm jumping by 3s. So I can go back in here and count by 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, all the way down, and I would get to 27. So again, that's another way you can do that. So this is if you're trying to find the new number. I'm going to start a different video for the second type of problems.